This is the Voices of Misery podcast. This show isn't for the easily offended, so PC Police on Patrol stand by. You've been warned. Now, let's join the nerd and nerdette with another podcast for that ass.
In the cave, 40 days, only a spark to light my way.
Welcome back to another episode of the Voices of Misery podcast, ladies and gentlemen. I am, of course, the nerd. I am doing this one solo today because, you know what? My wife, she's just a little scared because she knows nothing about the sport that we're going to talk about next. I don't know a lot about it either. That's why we have a professional on to kind of teach me and school everyone out there listening, about the fight game. And I'll tell you what, before we got on the air here, I watched a couple of his recent fights, and man, he knocks people out quick. So this may be the shortest episode ever because he'll knock my punk ass out quicker than he took out James Keenan.
I tell people, when these hand grenades start flying, bodies start dropping.
Hell yeah, man. Ladies and gentlemen, Blake, Bulletproof Troop. Blake, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing very well. Very well. I just signed a fight. I got a big fight coming up Friday the 13th in March. So the nightmare's coming back out to put somebody to sleep.
Who is getting put to sleep this time?
I'm not allowed to announce yet, but within the next week, stay tuned to my social media, people, at Bulletproof Troop on Instagram, and I'll be announcing who the next victim's going to be. It'll be a big fight, main event on Fox Sports.
Oh, boy. Oh, shit, man.
Biggest fight of my career.
Oh, boy. Well, you look in great shape. I think you're ready to go. You look like you're ready to rock and roll, man.
I'm feeling good. I'm actually moving. Oh, man, those guns come with a safety. I'm actually moving up to heavyweight. My last 6 fights have been at 205 pounds. And I feel like cutting weight is it puts handcuffs on my body's ability to perform. And slowly over the last 5.5 years of my career, I've been moving up more and more weight. I actually fought at 170 pounds early in my career. A lot of my fights are at 185, then 205. This is my first fight at heavyweight. And I really feel like now I'm finally completely taking the handcuffs off my body's ability to perform. I'm a bad man. But when I cut weight, bad man for about 5 minutes. And I just don't think that. And so I'm not competing at 100% when I would be cutting down weight. This is the first time I feel like my body's going to be at 100%. I don't think anybody can stand up to me at 100%. So I'm really excited to be moving up to heavyweight. And not just that, but I'm the self-proclaimed king of combat sports. And so I got to be at heavyweight. I can't be hiding behind a weight class. So coming out and making my debut at heavyweight, main event, fighting for the strap. I'm excited.
Let me ask you a question here about the weight class thing, because I'm an idiot. I'm very naive. That's why I have people on that are experts. They teach me things, Do you find that you fight better at heavyweight? Do you find like you're stronger at a heavier weight and lighter and faster at a smaller weight?
For me personally, I feel like I'm about the same speed. I haven't actually fought at heavyweight yet, but the majority of my training, even fighting at 185 pounds, I was walking around at heavyweight. Over 206 pounds is heavyweight. So, I've been walking around 220 to 230, fighting at 185 or 205 pounds. And I do fantastic in training. I do very well typically in the fight as well. But the amount of time that I'm able to keep up that pace and output is significantly shorter after a weight cut. So for me personally, I think that this will be the best version of Blake Troop that has ever stepped inside of a cage. So I'm really excited about it. I seem to do very well against a lot of guys in training, heavyweights, big dudes, So I'm excited to be unleashing that Bulletproof Troop on my next opponent.
Now, how is that opponent picking process? Like, how does that take place? Do you have an agent, or do you just kind of call somebody out?
So early in my career, for the first few years, I had a manager, but I didn't feel like he did a great job of getting me the right fights or building me the right way, or I wasn't stoked with the direction that things were going. So about 3.5 years ago, I left his gym and I started training at Black House headquarters and began managing myself. But another big aspect that changed for me was I started my brand of Bulletproof Troop, started walking around this grenade chain. I already had the logo, but where I really started pushing the whole Bulletproof Troop brand. And as a result of that, I've completely taken the wheel on my career. I make all the calls for me, and I get fantastic opportunities. My last 5 fights have either been main events, co-main event, or feature fight, which is right before the co-main event. My last 2 fights have been co-main event. Now I'm fighting main event. I'm coming off of a loss and moving up a weight class, and I went from co-main event to main event. So I negotiate all my stuff, and I've negotiated really cool things in my compensation, because I'm a very innovative negotiator, and I don't necessarily always look for money. I feel like there's other opportunities that other forms of compensation that I'm able to use to reinvest back into my company and build my company even bigger, build my brand even bigger, so that I can eventually take this somewhere beyond fighting. Most fighters just fight. They don't really have a what's next plan. And that's something that I really pride myself on, is I know what's next for me. You know, the professional wrestling world's what's next for me. And I've been doing a lot of things to build a brand up enough that I can transition over into the professional wrestling world. Because Bulletproof Troop is essentially a professional wrestling gimmick in MMA.
Well, that's something I kind of want to ask you about too, because I noticed the chain first, and it's like you have something that pops about you, and it's like the people that you're fighting against. I was like, who the hell is this guy? Like, I want to see him. He's cool. You know, he's got a gimmick. People are going to pay.
And so I even wear this to wrestling events and things like that. And I remember when I was out at WrestleMania week, I went to a bunch of shows, and I was at Impact walking around. And typically when I'm at shows, and especially when I'm on the floor, I walk around a lot. I want people to see me and be like, who the is that guy? You know, especially if I got the chain and stuff. And so later in the week, WrestleMania week, I'm watching WrestleMania somewhere, and I'm talking to this couple. And they're like, and I've been talking to them for like a half hour. We're getting along really well. We're, hanging out watching the show. And they're like, hey, so we saw you at Impact on Thursday. And we're like, look at that douche. Like, I so ridiculous with this big grenade chain. And now we're sitting here talking to you, and you're super cool. And I was like, I mean, I get people clown me a lot. Some people really like it. Kids love it. But the thing at the end of the day is you remembered me. You saw me on Thursday. How many people have you seen here on WrestleMania week? How many pro wrestlers or whoever? And you saw me and remembered me until Sunday. So much to the point that you said something to me on Sunday. Like, hey, I saw you before. It's intentional. You know, I intentionally do things to make myself stand out. Part of the reason I shave my head and I look like this, I mean, I like to look like this, but it's memorable. People remember me, you know, and I think that's a huge part of building a brand, you know, where I've got my hand grenade, I've got my little sayings, you know, I've got the big grenade chain. You know, it's a bunch of things that tie together to make, brand equity, essentially, you know, to the point where, you know, I mean, I'm not as big, but you start seeing grenades or hearing people talk about hand grenades, and people know it too. You know, just like the Nike swoosh, you see that swoosh and you know what time it is. You know, there's a standard level of quality that comes along with the brand. Same thing that I do for myself, where I really treat my brand as a business and an asset, you know, and that I'm trying to keep in mind that the objective is to build this brand into a household recognizable name around the world, you know, by doing things to be memorable, like wear the chain and have the catchphrases and cutting promos and to be entertaining, because at the end of the day, the fight business, it's show business. This is the entertainment industry. Like, Conor McGregor's a perfect example. And I'm not going to say Conor can't fight, because Conor can absolutely fight. But he's an entertainer. He gets people to tune in whether you want to see him win or lose. He's an entertainer. He's got his little catchphrases. He's got things that he says, you know, and he's got he's got like 10 of the top fighters in the world talking about fighting him, between Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather, Lomachenko, and like, dude, it's not even the sport he's in.
Yeah, you know? It's fucking ridiculous, man.
But it's about, for me, being entertaining. And I looked at guys like Conor, and again, I'm going to go back to say, the guy can absolutely fight. I'm not saying he can't fight, but he 100% got fast-tracked to the top and got much bigger opportunities than he, in my opinion, deserved. And when I say that, you're talking about when he fought Mayweather. You're talking about arguably the best ever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an arguable thing. There can be different opinions on it, but arguably the best ever against a guy who's never even boxed professionally or amateur. Like, and I'm not going to say he didn't do well in the fight, or that, like I said, he could fight, but he got there because he could talk. They went around the world doing question and answers all over the country or all over the world because he could talk. People would tune in to watch this fight, you know, and so by being entertaining, and that's exactly what that, I mean, I was a very professional wrestling-esque build-up where there's like, we're going around, we're going to have our little disrespectful things back and forth, and then we're going to fight at the end of the day.
Hmm. How did you come up with the name Bulletproof, and how did you come up with the grenade? Because I mean, it's really cool. It's. I mean, like I could see it was sold in concession stands.
So my last name's Troop. My name's Blake Troop, and so I've always kind of been interested in military stuff. My grandfather was a colonel in the Air Force. My dad was in the Air Force. My uncle, my grandpa on the other side was in the Navy, I believe. But so my family's been around the military a lot. I grew up basically like I'm not my family so much being military. My dad was when I was younger, but so I've always been into like camouflage and things along those lines. And when I was coming up with the nickname Bulletproof Troop, just kind of it comes off the tongue nice, and I get out. You'd almost think that Troop isn't my last. Like it's like Blake Bulletproof Troop. You'd expect like another, So that's just kind of how the Bulletproof came. I came up with that, and then my first fight using it, I had a wild brawl fight. I ended up getting this big scar on my forehead. There's blood everywhere. You might have seen me post a picture recently with just blood everywhere.
I saw it on Facebook.
So that was for the first fight I did, Bulletproof Troop, and then I tell people like they call me Bulletproof because man, I'm just gonna keep coming forward. It don't matter what you hit me with. Being bulletproof doesn't mean you don't get hit. It means you keep going towards your objective. But so Bulletproof, I just came up like that, and I've always been a big fan of camouflage and stuff like that. So camouflage is like my team colors. So a lot of my shirts have camouflage sleeves. Like so here's like a 3/4 baseball sleeve. Camouflage.
That's nice. I like
that. These are dope. And so I give a free T-shirt away with every ticket sale. So I have like 150 people at the fights now rocking my camo. So it's like, man, who is this team? Like, what is this?
Yeah.
Brilliant. And so with the grenade, I had, because I've always been into the military stuff, I had a girlfriend get me a flask that was like a grenade flask, the original grenade chain. And I was like, I'm going to spray paint this thing gold and I'm going to wear it out when I come out. And I was like half joking, sort of, but I was kind of building the gimmick. Huh. And so I did it and it was a hit. People were just like, what? Like, and then I eventually sent the original grenade chain to a kid fan of mine. And so now I have an actual grenade replica. Like this whole chain probably weighs like 10 pounds. It's really heavy. But so, and I just, because I've had this hand grenade logo for all 5.5 years of my fighting. So the grenade kind of just, hey, stop pushing. Hey, you stop pushing. Lay down.
That's a big dog right there.
Yeah, he's like, I want to be in the video too. But so then I just kept building on that, where I started talking about the hand grenades. When hand grenades start flying, and I just continue to build little things on it and build little things on. I call my style of fighting Big Brother Jiu-Jitsu. I tell people they need to treat it like an annoying little brother, and I just continue to build little things around my brand that all kind of tied together. I started a motivational video series called How to Become Bulletproof. And it was things that I did to get myself to where I'm at in my life, because I haven't always been stoked with where I'm at. I almost gave up on my fight career like 3.5 years ago before I started Bulletproof Troop. And I realized I needed to do a big overhaul in what I was doing to really make it to where it was that I was trying to go. And so, a lot of these things all tie in because, like I said, how to become bulletproof, bro, everything's not going to be smooth sailing. It's not all success. You're not hitting the target every time. What are you going to do to figure out what the target is you want to hit? How are you going to get that? Creating a plan, and then dealing with adversity, adapting those plans based upon as you learn, like different roads ahead, and how to navigate those different roads, So.
Do you find a lot of people getting overlooked in favor of people who have bigger personalities? And is that why you kind of adopted it yourself?
Yeah, 100%. You can even look at a guy like Kobe Covington. He was right there about to be cut from the UFC. And since then, he's fought for the interim belt and won it and fought for the title. Would I say that he wouldn't be there if he didn't do his whole little MAGA gimmick? I couldn't say no. But, man, I bet you that helped.
Yeah. People eat that shit up, man.
Yeah, and like whether people want to see you win or lose, he definitely went more so on the heel turn with that and pushes it really hard. But it got him enough publicity to the point where I absolutely think it helped this career. It's definitely helped with mine. I know that Bulletproof Troop, my brand, has significantly helped me in a lot of my a lot of the opportunities that I've reached since I began the brand. The first fight I would have had one way or the other without the Bulletproof Troop. But after that, I've gone 4-1 of my last 5 fights. And I would say all of those had to do mostly with the brand. Not entirely, because fight skill and things like that come into account. But I absolutely think it's significantly helped me, and that there's guys. I mean, Chael Sonnen is another perfect example of a guy who's he didn't quite have a gimmick, but I mean, he's kind of you start seeing flavors of professional wrestling in him. Another guy who I would say is the first guy to really have, besides myself, to have a gimmick is Tito Ortiz. Honey Can Beach Bad Boy. He had his flame shorts. He had his bleached hair, like called himself the Honey Can Beach Bad Boy, like a nickname that he really pushed hard, So, like, I think it absolutely helped guys like Tito or myself, Connor, Kobe. There's not a ton of guys who do it, I would say that the next kind of gimmick we're going to see is BMF with Jorge Masvidal.
Oh yeah.
And he's a bad dude.
Dude, I think he'll fuck Connor up if they fight, man.
Dude, that's a tough. I mean, if of all the fights to watch, I want to see that or Justin Gaethje versus Conor McGregor. Between those, I mean, like those would be fun fights to watch. And like Conor can fight. That's why I say when I bring up him getting fast tracked, I'm not trying to discredit his fighting ability. I'm just saying there were more at play than strictly his fighting ability, you know?
Oh, yeah. Well, the thing about Jorge Masvidal is, like, I see him as kind of like the New England, or I'm sorry, about Conor McGregor. I see him more like the New England Patriots. When football teams play the Patriots, it's like a Super Bowl game every Sunday. You're going to get their best, Yeah. So I just think that Masvidal, he's so hot right now. He's like the hottest fighter on the planet. And the way, McGregor's back and, he just had this big win over Cowboy, I think if they fight, Jorge's is going to steamroll with all that momentum. I don't think Conor stands a chance.
I think so, too. I think especially the way that he just steamrolled fucking Nate. He made Nate look bad.
Yeah.
I would be surprised. I'm not really sure who's going to beat Jorge Masvidal. I mean, he's a tough dude. It wouldn't surprise if they take Conor to go fight Usman next. I think that's a smarter fight for them than Jorge Masvidal. I think they have a lot to lose with Jorge versus I think he has a better chance of beating Usman. Usman's got a great wrestler, but dude, I mean, I don't think Conor should fight Khabib again. I think that's going to be a
horrible matchup.
Yeah, they're pushing it though. But
that
was a wild fight though. Conor versus Cowboy.
Yeah,
he came out guns blazing, caught him with a few of those shoulder strikes. That man, I was impressed. I was really impressed with Conor in his last fight, and I think like I was saying, taking the handcuffs off your body's ability to perform. I think same thing with Conor. I think that was the best Conor McGregor we've seen.
And can you believe people were saying that shit was fake? That like he was paid to take a fall?
Yeah, I mean, I can see why people would say that because I would have expected more out of Cowboy in his other fights. But anybody who's seen Cowboy knows that he really struggles with big fights. When he fought Rafael dos Anjos, it was basically the exact same fight that happened. And I think it was a liver punch that put him down. But for the people that are like, oh, it was a fix, he took a dive. Like, bro, did you see those shoulder shots and that kick? And like, he took damage. Did he allow himself to take damage? Maybe. I don't think he would, though. And I mean, Cowboy's not a guy who really needs money. Everyone's like, oh, $200,000 payday. Like, bro, it's not that much money compared to how much guys have made fighting Conor. And that dude's got money. It's not like he's some broke fighter that's just going to be like, fuck it. Fuck it.
Oh, exactly. Well, let me ask you this. I don't want to talk about those guys. I'm going to talk about you. When did you decide to get into the fighting? And like, what was the process for you to get in?
So I had been training since about 2001. I had a friend who was overweight when I was a freshman in high school, family friend. And he's like, hey, I want to start doing kickboxing. You down? And I just like, yeah, fuck it, let's do it. And we just happened to go to a legit school. And in 2001, they weren't like all over the place like they are now. But so we went, and I was naturally pretty good at it, and I enjoyed it. And I'm a very outspoken person about my opinions. So as I got older, I would continue to get into altercations. And so I'd always been really good at fighting. So I ended up training for a few years, and I ended up going to college and dropping out of school and stuff. And when I dropped out, I moved back to Southern California. My parents were like, if you just want to fuck around, then like go do your thing. And so I ended up like moving in with one of my buddies, and I got a job at On the Mat Fight Shop in like 2006. Worked there for about 3 or 4 years, became a manager, and got very involved in the fight community and continued to train a lot. Got very involved in the fight community. And so I had always had a really big passion and love for fighting. I'd been training since like 2001. Working at the fight shop around like a lot of famous, and this is like when the sport was not even close to what it is today, like 2006, like it's a lot, like a long time ago. Matt Hughes is the champ,
Jeez, yeah, can you imagine? I mean, time flies.
I'd been training for a long time around then, and I'd always wanted to fight. And in about 2010, I went back to school. My deal was with my parents, and I was very close to fighting right around then. My parents, if you want to go back to school, we'll help you out. We'll pay for school, but you can't fight while you're in school. Once you graduate, we'll be supportive of it. So I ended up doing that. I ended up graduating from Long Beach State in probably 2014. Yeah, about 2014. And I ended up fighting like summer of 2014. Fought 6 times in 6 months. Yes, 2014. So it'll be 6 years this summer. And so, but right before I ended up taking my first fight, I was doing an internship with Chivas USA, the Major League Soccer team. I'm a certified athletic trainer. And so I was on their sports medicine team. And I'm talking to a coach one day during lunch, and he's like, "Hey, man, so is this like what you want to do with your life?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I really like athletic training, blah, 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 blah." And he's like, "You're not understanding me. Like this is what you want to do with your life." And I was like, "Yeah, man, I really like athletic training, like I'm always around sports and blah, blah, blah." And he's like, "Dude, you're not understanding what I'm saying. Like, this is like what you want to do with your life." And I kind of thought about it, and I was like, I mean, yeah, I could see myself doing this forever. And I could tell that I wasn't answering his question. And so I thought about it when I went home. And it wasn't what I wanted to do with my life. It would have been me settling for something that I enjoyed doing and could have been okay doing, but it wouldn't have been me doing what I wanted with my life. Next day, that night, like I almost didn't sleep. And I decided, I was like, dude, I'm going to go take my first fight and blah, blah, blah. Put in my 2 weeks the next day and talk to the coach about it. And ended up fighting like a month later, 6 weeks later, fought 6 times in 6 months, and then just been fighting ever since. And so that was a pivotal moment in my life in terms of actually taking the steps to making the future that I wanted and doing what I really wanted to do with my life. Not what I would have been okay with. I would have settled for mediocrity, and a mediocrity I would have been happy in. But I would have been settling, 100% settling. And I'm so glad I didn't. It's been a wild ride. I mean, it's been a lot of ups and downs and hardships and hard work and all that. But I couldn't be happier that I took the risk and gambled on myself and my dreams,
Now, this is something I've always wanted to ask about a professional fighter. This is my number one question for you here. How do you deal with the fear or the nerves before you go into a fight? Is there even any of that? Or are you just like, hey, this is just work to me? I mean, because I figure like you're across the ring from someone that's trying to take your head off. And
I would definitely say it's a combination of, there's definitely some nerves to an extent. Because typically, like if you have like a regular fight in public, like let's say it's a bar fight or whatever, the amount of notice you have is like maybe 30 seconds before shit pops off. Yep. But not in fighting. I have 7.5 weeks to know, and I know this dude's training hard. I know I'm training hard. So one of the things that makes me feel good about my confidence going into it is that I prepare. The more I prepare, the luckier I seem to get. It's crazy. So I have a lot of confidence in myself, my abilities, and my heart. Like I won't quit on myself in there. I've been in really bad spots. My last 2 losses I was getting beat up pretty bad, but I never quit. My first fight is Bulletproof Troop. I went to sleep in a chokehold, but I wasn't about to tap out, So I know that I have a certain edge. I know that how far I can go is really far. And I know that I'll allow myself to take it as far as I possibly can. I tell people I'll fight I'm not signing a competition. This is a fight to the death. I'm literally trying to kill my opponent, and I'll die in that motherfucker, So it doesn't really scare me. I'm like, I heard an interesting quote recently that said, death only scares the people that aren't living. Like you're not out there doing what it is that you're like, man, if I died in the cage, I wouldn't say that I'd be okay with it, but it would be a completely acceptable way for my life to come to an end. So like I get excited going in there, and there's nothing else in the world matters when you're in a fist fight, especially in a cage like that. Like, I mean, people like, oh, can you hear people scream? Kinda, but nothing else matters. It's me and this other dude in this cage. And I get excited for it because I have a lot of belief in myself and my abilities. And I know that I'm willing to do more than what I think other people are willing to do. So I feel very confident going into the cage because it's very rare that I'll come up against a guy that's willing to stand up to what I'm willing to throw at him, and because it can, also on the other end of the spectrum is when you throw a lot at a guy, he just keeps coming at you. Exactly. And I know they're going to get to that point where they're just like, what the fuck do I got to do for this guy? Like the fight where I got choked unconscious, they're like talking about how this guy could knock out a rhinoceros and blah, 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 blah. I motherfucking took everything he could throw. He had to choke me out. And they're just like, holy shit, Troop is not human. No wonder they call him Bulletproof.
What's worse, getting knocked out or choked out?
Oh, knocked out by far. Choked out, you just wake up in like 30 seconds. So when I got choked out from that fight, I was in a triangle choke and I ended up going to sleep. And I like wake up and I was gushing blood out of my face and stuff. So I wake up and I'm kind of on my knees from the triangle choke. And as I'm like opening my eyes, I just see blood pouring because I got this big old gash right here.
Oh, yeah,
it's like a bunch of stitches. But so anyway, blood's just pouring. As the picture I posted yesterday was just blood all over. Yep. I had literally just woken up. Blood's like pouring out of my face. And I'm like, because your body's like lacking oxygen. So you're taking really deep breaths. And I'm like kind of looking up, looking around. And everything's not really in focus, but kind of coming back. And the doctor's like, hey, Bob, like talking to me. And I like look over at him. And while I'm looking him in the eyes, I realize where I am and what's happened. I'm just like, oh, shit. I've never been knocked out in a fight, but I mean, there's a lot more long-term damage. Like getting choked out, you just kind of wake up. I mean, I've been choked unconscious a bunch of times. You just kind of wake up like, what happened? Where am I? I don't remember going to shit. Yeah, when I get in the gym, I get choked. First time I ever got choked out, I was doing a private lesson. And he showed me something, and I got choked out with the choke, and he like kind of wakes me up. And I was like, oh, my bad. I didn't sleep very well last night. He's like, bro, I choked you out. You didn't go to sleep on your own. And I was like, oh, that's what happened. You like sit up and you kind of look around and you're like, oh, man. Oh, what the fuck? And then it kind of comes back to you.
Yeah. Now, are you always on like 365 days a year, or and I mean in reference to training, or is it like 6 to 8 weeks or so before a fight? What's that process like? When you're...
It definitely picks up 8 weeks out from a training camp, and that's when I'll start working a lot more on conditioning and things of that nature. I'm always lifting. I always lift. I'll typically stop lifting about 4 or 5 weeks out. But I mean, it's kind of a lifestyle, but the level of intensity that I'm training at will vary based upon if I have a fight and how far out I am from that fight. If I'm close to fight time, we're training to tap. I'm training to finish guys and put guys away. Otherwise, I might be doing more so skill acquisition where I'm trying to get better at certain things. Like I was doing a lot of karate stuff like about a year ago to work on my really long range fighting. So it really depends. I mean, I would say, am I training year round? Yes. The level of intensity of that training and the type of training I do will vary. Once I'm like 5 weeks out, it's basically mostly conditioning and very fight specific training. So I probably won't be doing like karate stuff so much. It'll probably be all wrestling, jiu-jitsu, and boxing, kickboxing, but if I don't have a fight lined up, I might be playing with some flashy kicks or things like that. Or trying to learn some new stuff. Even like weapons training. Like I like to play with the nunchucks and things like that because you're just learning how to use your body in different ways and different ranges of attack and angles of attack, So, I mean, it's a year-round training, but like I said, the level of intensity, especially the conditioning. I don't really like to run. I don't like to do sprints or conditioning and stuff. So I'm definitely not doing that unless I'm lined up to fight.
Let me ask you another question here. It's something I've always wanted to understand about the fight process. Like, let's say if like a guy's signed a fight at 165, right? And they weigh in on the scale, and then they're drinking water immediately, and then before you know it, like the next day, they gain like 20 pounds of water weight. I don't understand. Yeah, I don't understand the rehydration process. Can you explain that?
So, essentially, you have a couple hormones in your body that really, the main thing that you're manipulating is going to be water retention. because liquids are really heavy and they're much easier to get in or out of you. So you're essentially playing with your hormones. Excuse me. So you have two main hormones that are responsible for water retention. One's called aldosterone, which works very similar to sodium, salt. Mm-hmm. And one's called vasopressin, also known as antidiuretic hormones. And so basically between these two hormones, it really controls, it has to do with how much water retention you have. The more water you're taking in, if you're just pounding lots and lots of water, your body stops making antidiuretic hormone. A diuretic is something that makes you lose water. Typically it makes you pee. Like coffee's a diuretic. You drink coffee, you're going to have to take a piss. So it causes an antidiuretic, prevents you from losing water. So by taking in absurd amounts of water, your body stops producing antidiuretic hormones. It's like, dude, we don't need to save any of this shit. We have fucking plenty. So that's one of them. The other one's aldosterone, which has to do with sodium levels in the body. And so the more sodium, and it works very similar to sodium in the body. So if you're not taking in a bunch of sodium, your body's producing aldosterone to kind of pull in some of, or to manipulate the water levels in your body so that you have the right balance. So another thing you'll be doing is just taking in loads of salt. And so what happens is your body stops producing aldosterone. You're taking, they're called salt loading, sodium loading, and water loading. So by taking in absurd amounts of salt and absurd amounts of water, your body really stops producing aldosterone and vasopressin, antidiuretic hormone. So what happens is you're taking in absurd amounts of this stuff, and then you cut it off and you just hit the sauna, and your body just starts pouring water because it doesn't think it needs it anymore. It doesn't have the hormones to tell you to keep it. Then your body just drops absurd amounts of water, and when it realizes it needs more water, now it has to produce the hormones. Then the hormones have to go through the system to cause the water retention, and by then you've made weight. So that's kind of what happens. And so now you have high levels of these hormones, and then you start rehydrating like crazy, and your body wants to save everything because it's like, what the fuck's going on here? But, you're putting your body through a traumatic experience right before the biggest, right before, in my opinion, a fight to the death. I'd put on 30 pounds after weigh-ins. Like when I fought at 170, I got in the cage over 200 pounds. When I fought at 185, I got into like 220. I got into about 230 in my last fight. So you're definitely really straining your body and making it hard for your body to do that. That's why you're able to put on so much. And so to give you an idea of how much 30 pounds is, a gallon of water weighs 8 pounds. Mm-hmm. So like, fucking, that's a lot of water.
Oh yeah.
Some of it's going to be food and things like that you're eating. But now you have this absurd amount of water in your body that your blood gets a little not like crazy diluted down, but your body has a lot more water in places where it used to have water that had substance in it as well, like like your glycogen stores and all these other things. So you have just water replacing it, as opposed to water with the nutrients that your body needs to perform at 100%. This is why I'm so excited about not having to cut weight again, because I know when my body's ready to perform at that 100%, it's a scary machine.
Oh, yeah. But how is that allowed in the fight game? Because you would think like the health of the fighters would be more important than guys just making weight.
I couldn't tell you that, to be honest. California's really trying to do a good job of regulating on some of this stuff where you have to have weigh-ins the day of your fight as well. So that
that's the way it should be. I mean, like, that's the way you would think idealistically it would be. Like, all right, so like right before you walk out the curtain, we're going to weigh you again. And if you're above the weight, you get fined.
So typically it's about when you show up, you start getting your hands taped, they'll weigh you. And I want to say it's like 15% of your body weight. So if I fought at 205, I could go up to 230, 235, which I think which at that weight, that's not crazy. But if you're talking about a 135-pound guy, that's like 20 pounds, like 50, it starts. I mean, it's definitely a very tricky, slippery slope. But fighters will like, let us do whatever we want, blah, blah, blah. So sometimes the commission's trying to protect us from being too tough for our own good. I think it's smart. And I tell all my teammates that, and every time it gets brought up in interviews, that's why I fought at 170, 85, 205, heavyweight. And now I'm like, just wait till you see heavyweight Troop, because I realized the negative impact that it's had on me and my performance. And that's why I'm such a big advocate of not cutting a ton of weight, But to each their own. Some guys, it doesn't seem to affect them as much, But then again, there's been people who have died. So, I mean, it's to each their own,
Yeah. I personally wouldn't do it if I was a fighter. It just doesn't make sense to me logistically. Just like you said, right before the biggest fight of your life, you're going to put your body through all this trauma, and it's just
first slight size advantage. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't really make too much sense, but I do want to bring up a moment that I saw in your fight, and I'm going to butcher this man's name. Kadzmarad
Oh,
Bestayev.
Kazi Bestayev. Yes, sir.
I was in the ballpark.
Yeah.
There was a moment of the fight, and it wasn't a very long fight. You fucked this guy up, but
Yeah,
there
Kazi's
was a
actually a
moment.
good friend of mine too.
Oh boy. Well, there's something else I'm gonna ask you about. So sitting there and you're raining these fucking like haymakers on this guy. What goes through your mind? Because I remember back in my high school fights, you would just throw a couple punches, you wouldn't even be thinking, you would just like almost black out, like out of sight, out of mind. You throw these punches and it's over 5 minutes later. When you're hitting someone, are you like tactfully like thinking like here, or are you just throwing?
Yes and no. I mean, I would say it's a combination of just letting the animal out, but some strategy to it. So the guy who's the referee for that fight was Frank Trigg, and
Yep.
Frank Trigg was the guy who's the referee in the first fight is Bulletproof Troop where I got. And in the first round of that fight, I mean, I took a good amount of damage, but I got my guy down. And I was hitting him a very similar position that I had Kazi in. And I kept hitting him and looking at the ref, hitting him and looking at the ref, hitting him and looking at the ref. Like, are you going to fucking stop this?
Yeah.
He didn't stop it. And I ended up fucking losing that fight. And watching the fight, when I went back and watched it, and something my coach said, he's like, dude, if you didn't fucking look at the referee to stop the fight, if you had just continued to unload viciously, you might have stopped the fight. Just kept looking at him, go back. Looking at him. He's like, in that 5 seconds of looking back at him, instead of just being a psycho, might have won you the fight. So when I found myself in that position again against Kazi, I was no looking at the referee. I'm just going to fucking hurt you as badly as I can. You know? So it's kind of a combination of the two. One of the things that I pride myself upon a lot is I tell people, I'm not going to come compete against you. I'm going to come fist fight you. And then I'm going to come let the animal out, and you're gonna have to fight me off, you know. But so in like my last fight where the guy was tough and I ended up smashing him in the first 30 seconds, almost knocked him out, gassed out, spending everything chasing the kill, and ended up eating a bunch of damage. Where I plan on being a little bit more strategically calculated in my viciousness, you know. So before it was somebody getting locked in the cage with an animal. Now they're getting locked in the cage with a smart serial killer. You know, where I'm coming out, I'm going to be much more calculated with my aggression and my violence than just unleashing the animal and just go, you know,
Yeah.
which there's going to be some of that, but I'm going to be smarter about picking and choosing those times to let it go and more calculated and vicious with my strategic violence, you know. Friday the 13th, what better time to let the serial killer out?
Now, I fucking love your fight style because you go out there and you want to knock people the fuck out. I mean, like look at historically the most famous fighters in the world, Mike Tyson, fucking all these killers. Like even like a Manny Pacquiao, he's always going for the knockout. You know, is it more
a lot more exciting fights to watch?
Yeah, like who the hell doesn't like watching heavyweight boxing for that reason? Like look at Deontay Wilder, lays people the fuck out, and people love him.
Those fucking hands.
He's a fucking beast, man. So, is it more important for you to go for the quick finishes because like your finish rate's 100% for all your matches? Like you don't let
100%
fights go
first
to
round
distance.
finish. All
Yeah.
my finishes are in the first round. Yeah.
Crazy.
I mean, I come out and I try and steamroll guys. I'm trying to roll over the competition like an Abrams tank, you know. And I'm still going to try and get a first round finish in this one, but I'm going to be a little bit more strategic instead of it just like, because straight up it's like the bull rodeo where you just open the cage and the bull's like, ah. That's what it's been. And not that it's not going to be similar to that, but it's going to be a little bit more strategic with the unleashing. But I'm looking for first round finishes. I'm looking to put my opponents away and hurt them as badly as I can within the rules, but as badly as I can. And that's not going to change, but I will be a little bit more strategic about applying that violence.
That's perfect. Now I want to get back to I'm going to screw his name up again. Kadzmarad.
Kazi.
God, even easier for me to say. So you guys were friends. Were you guys friends before the fight?
Yeah, so we trained a bunch before the fight. Like there are pictures of us hanging out on. There's pictures of me and him on my Instagram, and me and him on his Instagram. Like we're friends. And he trained in my gym a little bit. He's more so out of our sister gym, King's MMA, and so when I got offered the fight, because I have a good relationship with LFA, so I got offered the fight a little bit before he did. And I was like, I'm with it, man. I'll fight my fucking mom. Y'all are offering me up my televised fight. Like, let's run it. I didn't care who it was against. And it happened to be against my buddy Kazi. And I was like, I'm with it. So the next day I'm flying back from Florida and I get a call from him, and we were friends, but he didn't have my phone number friends. Like we're cool. There's pictures of each other, but we weren't like he didn't have my phone number friends. So I land and I get like 3 text messages and it's like, hey bro, give me a call. It's Kazi. Call me, bro. And I'm just like, and I know what it's about because I know he probably just got the call about the fight. So I'm sitting on the airplane still, we're like taxiing. I'm like, hey, what's going on, bro? And he's like, hey man, you talked to LFA? I'm like, yeah, I talked to LFA. They offer you a fight? Yeah, they offered me a fight. Against me? Yeah, against you. Are you gonna take it? Yeah, I already accepted it. Are you gonna take it? And he's like, yeah. All right. So, and like it was a very awkward conversation. The guy next to me was like just looking at me like, and I hit Kazi with that, man, I'd fight my mom, blah blah blah. And so the guy next to me was just like, because we're sitting on the airplane, it's like silent on the airplanes. We're like taxiing back, talking about fighting my mom. Like, yeah, I accepted the fight, bro. It's hard, man. I'd fight my mom.
Is it easy to turn off the emotion after a fight? Because like you lit him up like a Christmas tree at the end of that fight, and like you guys are cool at this point. So like, is there a moment where like you go to shake his hand, he's like, "Man, not right now, man. You just fucked me up."
I
like,
mean, so we didn't have a moment like that. But after you fight somebody, there's 2 ways you feel about him. You either have a lot of respect for the guy, or none. Kaji and I had respect for each other after. With the fight where I got choked unconscious, I talked a lot. That was when I began talking all my shit and all that. And that dude did not like me before the fight. We're great friends now because we had that fight, and we both know what the fuck each other are made out of from the fight. So I would say it depends on the fighter, and some guys are sore losers. Like I'm after Andre Vasylenko, my last fight beat me, and nothing but respect to him. And social media and all that stuff too. Like I think it depends on the dynamic of the 2 guys, and then if a guy's able to be a good loser, I guess, or not sore loser. I don't really know how to phrase that, but because you'll see guys that lose a fight and they'll storm out of the ring before they even get their hand raised, So like, for me personally, if I respect you at the end of the fight, then I have no problem being, whether I won or I lost, being very cool with the person. I haven't had that time, at least professionally, where I haven't respected the guy at the end of the fight, So for me personally, I have no problem respecting guys. But like I said, you can see guys storm out of the ring after they lose the match sometimes.
Well, like pro fighters do have a lot of discipline because you guys, like you personally can walk into any Walmart in the country, know you can fuck everybody up in that bitch, right? But like that you can, but you're not going to. But right. You got these assholes that, they were like the toughest kid in high school, they're hanging out at a bar 20 years later, starting fights and getting, it's just like you guys can take a loss and you take it with a dignity. Like you were gladly talking about how you lost a fight, you got choked out, and it just doesn't faze you. Right. There's just something about that. Like,
there's part of, to get good at fighting, you've gotten your ass beat a lot of times. You've probably been choked out by girls. You probably got lit up by kids. Like, to get good at fighting, typically you've gotten humbled a lot of times. And typically the guys that are these fucking loudmouth assholes haven't done that. They're used to being able to bully people or whatever, So the more hardship you've overcome and the more times you've been the nail, the easier it is to be a humble hammer, I guess, Not that I don't talk shit and stuff, but I can take a loss on the chin and learn from it and move forward instead of making excuses or this or that. Most importantly, move forward and adapt so that I'm going to continue to get better. Like my last fight, I took a loss. It sucked, but I had such big lessons and growth that occurred because of that loss in different areas that I could change. That's part of life. Like, if you can't deal with failure, then man, life's going to suck.
Oh yeah, for sure. Now, do you ever find people trying to test you out in public because you're really popular out in Southern California, right? Do you ever see people like, hey, fucking bulletproof? Go test them.
It's pretty rare, and typically the people that'll try and test me have no idea who I am. They just know that I fight, and it's almost like they want to test enough to see if they can get away with testing. But if something starts turning, like I had a guy who was like kept getting close to me and like talking to him, like he would, like if it popped off, he'd beat my ass. and would get all close to me. And like, I was like, man, you're starting to get really close to me. And it's like, yeah, but like kind of hit me like, well, what are you going to do? And I just push this dude. And he like flips over a stool and hits the ground. He's like, dude, what the hell? I'm like, and so the bartender ends up kicking us both out. But she's like, I'm sorry, I have to kick you guys both out. It was a bar that I was regular back then. And she's like, I know that he was starting. And her boyfriend was right there like, dude, this dude is so patient. Like, he should have knocked that fool out like a half hour ago. You know? But typically it's just, and the guy didn't really want to fight. The guy wanted, I think, just kind of feel cool in front of his friends. And you're probably not even like, I think that I could probably take you down. And it's just like, you know, just like, whatever, bro. You know, just like continuing to push it. But then when it actually came to having to do something, they're like, oh, shit, I didn't really want to fight you.
Yeah.
You know, I just wanted to try and look cool in front of all my friends and this chick, or try, like, you know, I would say that's more along the lines of what it is. I wouldn't say that I get tested to really try and do it. I think people try and see what they can get away with. But they know they're not going to fucking win. And if they do, they're
delusional, drunk, stupid.
yeah, you know, because like, bro, I got like 50, 60 pounds on you, and I do this for a living. Like, if you really think that you would stand a chance, like, you know, it's like somebody would think they're going to go be able to jump up into an NBA basketball game and like hold your own. Like, well, you might be able to go to the park and play a pickup game and smash a lot of people, but there's levels to this shit, my man.
Well, people naturally have an overinflated sense of self-worth and importance. And when you mix alcohol or anything, it just magnifies by 100, man. I mean, like, if I was at a bar and someone walked in, you know, I'm sitting there all, you know, feeling myself, well, I can kick his ass, and you're with your wife and your friends. Yeah, go get him. And before you know it, you're late the fuck out.
Dude, friends always egg people on, too.
Oh, yeah.
It's such, like, I don't want to say they're out, but half the time it's kind of the friends, like, and they might not be egging you on, but they'll be, like, laughing at you. They'll say something like, I bet I could take you down. Oh. I'm just like, I'm about to slap both y'all motherfuckers. You're starting this, and you're gonna fucking start. You're gonna encourage this. I'm gonna slap both of you. I don't even hit people anymore. I just slap them. I find that a slap says so much more than a punch.
Oh yeah,
it's a slap, and people are just like,
this motherfucker. I'm not even worth a punch from this guy. You know. Yeah. Hey, let me ask you a question here, because like I'm looking at the time here, and I know you got somewhere else you got to be in a little bit. Do you think it's disrespectful when people come into like your fighting, you know, like in MMA world, and from an outside perspective, thinking they can just do it? I mean, like CM Punk, those boxers that they try to cross over.
Yes and no. I can't hate on a guy like CM Punk for getting the opportunities that he got, or I encourage people to go out there and try and achieve their dreams and try what they want to do. It's a lot harder than it looks, though, as CM Punk found out. And he was like a tough guy, you know. But I mean, he was a person that I saw get an opportunity into the UFC, and at first I kind of hated on him. I'm like, well, how'd this guy get in the UFC who has zero idea how to fight? He has a big following, you know. So do I hate on it? No. But I mean, I'm happy to see people come see how hard it really is, you know, because it's not playing a video game. You might be really good at the UFC game, but it's significantly different, you know. When your health bar goes down in real life versus your health bar going down in a video game, significantly different feeling. So, I mean, I'm very supportive of people going after what they want and trying things in life. But I would almost say that I like it more so if people think jiu-jitsu or wrestling is really easy. Come try a jiu-jitsu class. You're going to be like, holy shit.
Yeah.
You know, like it's where you watch guys, you're at the bar watching a fight, and they're like, get up. And you're like, well, you don't think he wants to get up? Like, it's not quite that easy to just get up with a dude on top of you. Yeah. I see a dude that doesn't want you to get up. So but I don't necessarily mind it so much. I would definitely say that sometimes it can take away from the legitimacy of it when you get a guy who's like doesn't belong in a cage and they give him a good matchup to make him go look good. Like, because then it does look like any guy off the couch could just go do this, you know, because they give a guy an opportunity to go fight, and then I don't want to say has no business fighting, but sometimes it does make the sport look easier than it really is. But I can't even be mad at them for that. At the end of the day, it's show business. It's for-profit businesses.
Money.
If they can get a guy who probably shouldn't be in the cage to fight and sell more pay-per-views or whatever, I can't really hate on that because it's good for the sport at the end of the day too. If the sport's growing, then you know I would rather see more people try and take fights than less people. I think if anything, it's going to eventually build to more credibility in the sport because people are like, bro, that shit's fucking really hard. That shit sucks getting punched in the face. Most people have never been hit in the face. Like, they might have been like touched in the face, but it's different when somebody knows how to throw a punch and clocks you.
Mm-hmm.
Or like really tries to choke you. I mean, you feel desperate and then you're like, because there's a lot of armchair quarterbacks, especially in fighting. They're like, oh, Cerrone's such a little bitch when he curled up. And I'm just like, that foot, a broken orbital, a broken nose. Like, dude, a shoulder's a really hard thing to hit someone with. Get kicked in the face. Like, I mean, that boy, like 30 something unanswered strikes. Like, what a little bitch. Like, I mean, I can see why somebody who's never done it could feel that way because you watch a lot of these fights. Like, I see girls that don't curl up like that. Like, yeah. I bet one of those girls will make you curl up like that, though. You know, like.
The flip side of this conversation is like it's easier for you to get into their realm because we briefly mentioned the pro wrestling thing in the beginning, how you showed up at the Impact show. I feel like MMA fighters, you could excel there easily. And I saw the video of you going in the ring and doing like the flips and whatnot. I'm like, this guy could fucking walk in there tomorrow and probably have like a 5-star match with somebody.
So I mean, I'll get the same thing for wrestling as I'll say for fighting. It's a lot harder than it looks. Because I'm naturally already a gifted grappler, very high level submission grappler. A lot of the moves come very easy to me in the sense of I already know how to manipulate somebody else's body for real. So if I don't really have to be torquing his wrist to really turn, like it makes it, the transition from MMA into wrestling has been very smooth for me. But it's not easy, man, especially taking bumps. Wrestling is it's a lot harder than people think. That the conditioning's a lot harder than people think. Like getting blown up in the ring, remembering spots on the fly, being able to communicate and then do something. And all while keeping in mind where you are in the ring and what's going on around you and telling the story of doing it. So wrestling's just like I'm saying with fighting, where it's, dude, it looks easy to watch on TV. And especially if you're watching WWE where these guys have fantastic footwork, fantastic ring spacing, and you watch it and it looks like such an easy dance, and it's not. It's really not. And I thought wrestling was going to be a much easier transition when I first got into it, but learning about like the spacing and the face up when you're selling, you know, like it's so much, and taking bumps, it's not easy. It's really tough. So I have a ton of respect for professional wrestlers that are doing it. And I absolutely had a newfound respect for it when I really started doing it. When I first started doing it, we were doing like rolls and a little bit of chain wrestling. And I'm like, oh, this shit's easy. Yeah. I mean, and that stuff's very transferable from MMA. But a lot of the rest, the storytelling, the communicating on the fly and being able to do that right then. Mm-hmm. Like you go to whip dude and you might be like, you know, hard whip, feet out, arm drag, arm lock. And it's, bro, and that's like, you got to say it like this, like, boom, 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 and both guys better fucking hear it like it. You know, so it's way harder than the professionals make it look. But I would say the same thing with boxing, jiu-jitsu, all of it. The professionals make it look significantly easier, like some dude on the couch could just go do it. And that's not the case. You know, like the average person couldn't even take a bump, bro. Not like. Oh no!
I tried it, man. I went to a wrestling school, Jersey All Pro Wrestling. I went there for about 6 months. Dude, I got the shit kicked out of me, man. I was like, yeah, this isn't my thing. This is.
Bro, it's tough. Luckily, I'm a big dude who can hold my own. Like with if someone was trying to like stretch me, you know. But it's even a best case scenario, bro. Wrestling is tough. It's not in. It's much harder than it looks on TV or in a video game, you know, which I'd say is very similar to fighting. People ask, like, well, what's harder? They're different kinds of hard. They're different things are challenged in each. And what the objective is of each is different, you know, like, would I rather take a bump or get punched in the face? I'd probably rather take a bump, but would I rather get punched in the face once or take 5 bumps? I'd probably, you know, where it starts being like, I mean, they're different, but they're hard, you know, it's not as easy as the professionals make it look. I mean, I imagine that's with a lot of stuff in life. Like you watch a football game and a guy throws like a 50-yard pass that gets intercepted. Like, oh, he sucks. Like, what the fuck? He couldn't even throw a ball 25 yards. Like it's, and these are all freak athletes out there too. So, you know, these things are happening against almost unnaturally gifted athletes, you know, like it's Same in wrestling, you know, or fighting. Like it's
Freaks. They're all freaks, man.
100%. You
Yeah.
know.
Now, are you going to be taking bookings for wrestling while you're actively pursuing the MMA career, or are you going to stop one and then transition to the other?
So I would like to be doing both. I have a pretty cool little thing set up right now with the people that I'm fighting with. So the people that own Lights Out Extreme Fighting on Fox Sports also own Championship Wrestling from Hollywood.
Okay.
So I have that whole little network. So I have a cool little in with that. That doesn't necessarily mean anything for sure, but I know that they're interested in using Bulletproof Troop on both platforms and bringing me over when I'm ready. Because, I mean, I feel like I'd be able to wrestle safe, but I want to be able to come out and be – I don't expect to be the best in my first matches, but I want people to be like, man, this kid's got potential. And beyond just some potential, like, man, this kid could be huge. You know, I've already got years of the gimmick down, the promo work and all that stuff. It's just a matter of proper in-ring performance stuff to really maximize when I make that transition. Because once you've debuted, I think the debut is one of the most important matches in a career.
Oh, yeah. First impression is always the biggest one.
Exactly. So I want to make sure that it's a good impression in the right places. I've also fought on Access TV a bunch of times. So Access TV owns a bunch of fight footage of me. Access TV also has New Japan and now Impact. I know New Japan's leaving, but so I've got a handful of cool little bonus things that a lot of people, almost nobody has, you know, like if they could use my fight footage on Championship Wrestling in Hollywood or my fight footage on an Impact Wrestling because they own the footage, it really allows my character of being a professional badass to, it all ties together, you know, which is something that I plan on using. But like I said, at the right time, with the right opportunities, you know, I'm definitely going to be protective of my brand where I'm not going to be taking like tons of bookings, and nothing against people that are choosing to do that. But because of my fighting background, it'll definitely be something I'd like to do both of at the same time. But I mean, for the next 8 weeks, my focus is this fight. This is an extremely pivotal time. But if I'm the champion now and Lights Out, man, who knows who I might call out? I might call out Nick Aldis. Who knows who's going to get called out after I win this fight?
That'd be interesting.
Wouldn't it?
Now, you make a very good point, though, because all they need, because it's not going to take much to introduce you. All they need is your fight footage, just you knocking motherfuckers out and be like, hey, this is Blake Bulletproof Troop, a nice voiceover, and boom, you're set. You're already made before you even walk through the curtain. You know,
Right.
It's easy.
And that's things that, I mean, there's quote unquote MMA gimmick guys in fighting, you know, but I'm the real deal, you know. And if they have the access to that footage, like Championship Wrestling from Hollywood will because of Lights Out, or Impact because of Access TV, it's just another thing that adds to the credibility before I get in the cage of being a legitimate badass, you know, professional ass kicker. And I plan on using that same gimmick and stuff. I want to bring Bulletproof Troop into professional wrestling. I don't want it to be Bulletproof Troop and fighting and then whoever in wrestling. I would like to try and marry the two brands as much as possible. But right now, all I got on my mind is this fight on March 13th. So it's going to happen. I've been training at Santino Brothers Wrestling. I've been training for a little bit over maybe a year and a half. So, I mean, I've been training for a long time. I feel like I'm really picking it up quickly, particularly the moves and stuff, and learning about the storytelling and kind of how to orchestrate the crowd into, you know, when you're building up comebacks or hopes and things like that. Or trying to find your big spot for the match, like, and how to use my character in the story, you know, because who's Bulletproof Troop? Like, you know, I'm going to wrestle differently than a guy who's 5'10", 170 pounds, you know, like versus 6'4", 240 professional ass kicker, like, you know, and high level. I'm a 2-time world champion for Bone Jiu-Jitsu, 5-time North American heavyweight submission wrestling champion, as well as just tons of other medals. So like how I'm going to use that guy within the story to help as a character to help tell the story, to entertain the crowd. Because at the end of the day, it's about entertaining the crowd and the crowd enjoying the show, you know. And so figuring out how to do all that, I'm excited about it though. I really like the professional wrestling stuff. I really enjoy it. Brian Kendrick's one of my coaches, and he's a fantastic storytelling coach who really because the moves are interchangeable, whether it's a body slam or a hip toss or an arm drag. It could have been whatever moves, but using the moves to tell the story to try and get something over to the point where you want to see a guy win or see a guy lose. And like, you know, the heel might do some type of cheap move. It might be a nut shot or it might be a eye poker. That's interchangeable, but it's a heel doing some cheap stuff to make him not be liked and being able to tell that story in there. So I'm really excited about the wrestling. I'm really excited about the wrestling.
What's your finishing move going to be?
So I've got a handful of finishing moves. I mean, I would keep it relatively simple. I think because of the amount of shit that I talk, I'd be more of a heel. And I mean, just like an overhand right, I'd call it my hand grenade. I pull the pin and just overhand right. I'd be one of them. Another one's the elbow, where it's just like a jumping spike elbow. Bam. Okay. I could do that because it's something Brian Kendrick told us. He's like, man, when you're coming up with your finishing move, pick something that you could do 300 nights a year. Yep. Multiple times in a night. He's like, 540's dope. But, dude, if you got to do that multiple times or you smash a guy's face one day, he's going to be pissed. Where I could throw 50 hand grenades in a match and it'd be easy for someone to counter, easy for it and believable for it to be a knockout multiple times in a night, whatever. Or I could do, like I said, the jumping spike elbow, the elbow. I could do that in the cage. I could do it off the top rope. I could do it anywhere, you know. And a guy could be in the corner. I could do it and I could miss and hit my elbow and be like, oh, and then he starts working my arm. Where it's a versatile move that has almost no ability to go wrong.
Yep.
Even in its worst, like, okay, I might lightly clock you in the face a little bit. Like, you know, I'm not going to flip on some guy's face or, you know, leg drop and smashes. You know, so those would be my two big ones. And because I'm a fighter, throwing hand grenades and elbows. Mm-hmm. And then I'll probably have some type of slam that I'm going to call a Troop-plex.
Troop-plex. I like it. Like to play on
what
words.
That'll look like exactly at this point. I'm not 100% sure. But I mean, and then I'd probably have a handful of submission holds I do. I might even try and bring back like just a full Nelson. Because I could pick guys up. If they just hook their arms back on me, I can pick them up and make it seem like I'm shaking them around. I'm 6'4", 240, so I can. Yeah. If I needed to pick up Braun Strowman, I probably could, you know. But it could be a battle where it's, you know, arms coming down, just like the Master Lock kind of was, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Where it could sell a whole little battle right in there, you know. So, I mean, I'd say something along those lines. I'd probably have a submission. I like the full Nelson because we'd be up and standing. I could swing them around and make it really look like I'm
really theatrical.
Exactly. You know, the hand grenade, the elbow, and a Troop-plex and a submission hold. I mean, that would probably be, and I'd be more of like a technical chain wrestler, loudmouth. That'd be putting the guys down in the spots, talking shit, blah, blah, blah. Things of that nature would be what I would imagine. But it wouldn't surprise me if they want me to be a face too, just because I'm kind of a pretty boy, white boy. I don't really care. It doesn't really matter. I think those are small details of like what my finishing. I think it'd for sure be hand grenade or elbow, Troop-plex, and a submission hold. You know, and I think that's a nice little variety of professional ass kicker moves. You know.
I like it. Very believable. And the cool thing is you can hit it on anybody. So if you're fighting Big Show, you can hit it with the hand grenade. If you're fighting Brian Kendrick, hit him with the hand grenade. You don't have to adapt your style. It's like, oh, wait, he can't do his move on this guy because he outweighs him like 300 pounds, you know?
Right,
you
exactly.
I love him.
Easy to counter, easy to throw, very low dangerousness, you know, like.
Hey, you got time for two more questions? These are
I got as much time as you need me for, brother.
Hey, there's this weird thing that I just have to ask you about since you're in the industry. You know how they're letting trans women fight women now in the women's division? How do you feel about that shit, man? It's so wrong.
I'll start by saying that I respect people's rights to be whatever they want to be, man. If you want to say you're a meat popsicle, you're a fucking meat popsicle in my book. I don't really give a shit about any of that. I think everybody has the right to be whoever, whatever they want. And I support that. When you want to start talking about sports competition, I think that it definitely makes it changes the game a lot, especially if you want to talk about combat sports where someone's actually hitting somebody else in the face. You know, not that there's not, I think some trans people, I think it'd be more acceptable where they're not as testosterone built through life versus some that are, you know. It's definitely a really tricky thing because, like I said, I support people's rights to be whatever the fuck they want. You know, if you want to self-identify as, like I said, a fucking meat popsicle, I'll call you a meat popsicle. I don't really give a shit. But in sports competition, I definitely think it changes things. Like you see some 16-year-old boys won like CIF wrestling for women for the last like 3 years in a row.
Yeah.
It's like, I think that they need to figure out I think that sports competition should be your biological birth, sex or gender or whatever the fuck you want to call it. I think people being able to socially claim whatever they want, I'm okay with that. It's definitely another tricky slope where you want to talk about like bathrooms and kids but if it was strictly for sports competition, I think that there's an unfair biological advantage to men competing against women in, just about any sport. And ping pong, I'd be cool. Or like, but fuck, even golf. Like, I think that it'd be unfair for a biological male to compete against a biological female in the majority of sports, particularly combat sports, where damage is being, especially a striking combat sport like wrestling. I think, but man, if you're beaten, it
just doesn't look good.
Yeah, so Fallon Fox. There's a girl who's like broke a girl's skull. So one of my teammates, my friend, actually beat her.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's fucking dope.
She's a bad chick though, Ashley Evans Smith. She's a bad chick. She signed to the UFC, but I would say that's where my stance would be on that. And like I said, I support people's rights to represent themselves in whatever way they want. But I think sports competition, especially combat sports, I think that it's an unfair advantage. What the solution is, I'm not sure. If they should have their own division or if they should be competing biologically, I don't have the answer. But I can just tell you that I think in sports competition, I think that it's an unfair advantage to have that type of biological difference.
That's a great answer. And I think the answer is clear. I think if you're born a man and you want to turn into a woman, that there should be a division for them. If you're a woman who identifies as a man, make a division for them. That's it. That's the solution.
I think that's the most simple way to go about it, But then there's like gender fluid, or I don't know enough about this stuff to really.
Dude, that's mind-blowing shit right there, man. There's not enough weed in my fucking pipe to figure that out. That gender fluid shit is just, I don't know, man. That's just when you get to Twilight Zone.
I don't know enough about it to really be an expert, but that would be my opinion on the sports competition aspect of it.
Yeah. My understanding of it is you can be a man in the same sentence as a woman, so you can change throughout the course of the day. So you can kind of snap it in. That's about
that's what I figured. It was something along those lines. But yeah.
Last question I got for you, bud. CTE. Do you have any concerns because you're going from fighting in MMA to professional wrestling, where you take a lot of bumps, a lot of days of the year? Do you have any long-term concerns on that? How do you protect yourself?
Not particularly, because I'm already crazy. Yes and no. I always tell people your brain's the main muscle you flex when you hustle. It's your hustle muscle. So you absolutely want to take care of it as much as you can, but also in combat sports, like you're going to be getting hit in the head. Wrestling, you're going to be taking bumps to the head, whether it's hitting your own head on a bump, having a chair thrown at you, whatever. So, I think it's minimizing the excess that you need to take. I don't do a ton of hard sparring anymore. I think you need it to an extent at the beginning of your career to weed out the people that are going to be able to take a shot and being able to give a shot, because it's not everybody can apply damage to people or have damage applied to them without not wanting to play anymore. So you definitely need it to an extent. But now that I know I'm a tough guy, I know how to hit hard, I know how to control myself. All my training now is or not all of it, but the vast majority is technical sparring. Instead of just taking these excess shots, I know I'm going to be taking shots in the cage. And that's inevitable, but it's a matter of the excess in shots that I need to take. Same thing with I wouldn't just be taking chair shots in the head every weekend because I'm like, death match, and props to people that choose to do that. I just know the amount of damage and the experiences I've had in my life that, I've had multiple high-speed motorcycle crashes. Like my body has a lot of mileage on it, so I'd be particular about the excess mileage or the unnecessary mileage that I didn't have to take. So am I worried about CTE? You see guys like Aaron Hernandez who's had a wild life. I haven't seen this documentary yet, but I keep hearing how there were so many wild things in his life, and then they talk about how bad his CTE was. It's definitely a little bit concerning because you don't want people to be looking at you like, man, this guy had a wild life, because and and I can't say I didn't know the guy before he played football or his entire life, so I can't speak on him as a person and what the CTE likely had to do with it. But some of the things you hear about CTE, it definitely sounds like CTE had something to do with the decision making and impulsiveness and violence and so forth. Is it a concern? Yes and no. I know I'd rather be living my life than living in regret, or live my life the way I am than living with regret. But I'm also going to try and be as smart about it as possible. I'm not just like, fuck it, I'm a fighter, I don't care. I'm just going to, I don't want to be a vegetable. So I'd be strategic about the mileage that I'd be putting on my brain and body as a whole,
Do you see it hurting sports and combat sports, just the knowledge that they have on CTE now, like parents not letting their kids get into certain things? Do you see like football ending eventually, or
I think that you'll continue to see more and more regulation to protect it. I think that it's too big of sports for them to let it die. I definitely think you'll see a bigger rise in sports like baseball again, basketball, as opposed to like football where it's a lot of bang, 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 but even the banging in football, you're seeing significantly more personal injuries or roughings, or, you can't, what's it called, like spearing when you hit them with where it's significantly more regulated, which I think is a step in the right direction for the longevity of careers. People want to complain like, oh, it's pussy now. Like, those are probably the same people who've never played or never the same armchair quarterbacks who are like, Cowboys a bitch, so I don't really have a problem with it becoming more and more regulated, especially for children with like developing brains. I'm a 32-year-old adult. My brain's pretty much developed. Not that it's not going to damage wouldn't hurt it now, but a developing brain, I think, is much more vulnerable to taking damage, I think you will see growth of other sports. Like, I would say jiu-jitsu is going to be probably the biggest combat sport in the country within a few years. With wrestling, because there's no striking in it, I think you're going to see less boxing and so forth. MMA is growing, but the amount of parents that are really going to allow kids to compete in it, I think I'm happy all the studies are coming out because it allows people to be much smarter about the choices that you're making, whether you want to allow your kid to do that or if it's you that you're going to do that. I think it's great for knowledge is power, so I think that it's good. I'm happy that all these studies are coming out and stuff. I think it will continue to impact sports like we see the NFL with rules changing and concussion protocols. But that's where we're going to see it the most is where the money's at. Where the money's at is where the research is going to happen. Yeah. Not they don't care about high school kids, but there's no money in it.
Yeah.
No, you want to talk about the NFL, you're talking about billions and billions and billions of dollars every year. So what's $20 million in research? Not that $20 million is not a lot of money, but when you start looking at the size of different pies, you want to talk about $20 million for a university budget, please,
Yeah, that ain't going to happen. Hey, man, you got to check out the Aaron Hernandez thing. Set aside 3 hours.
I heard it's wild.
Dude, you're going to binge it, man. It's fucking amazing. It's such a good thing. Such a good time, just like this podcast was, man. And this is my favorite part of the show. And I really appreciate you coming on, giving me a chance, and just having a good conversation. I learned a lot. But this is my favorite part of the show. Plug your shit, man. Plug everything. Everything you got, plug it right now. Whatever you got.
So if you guys want to check me out, social media, at Bulletproof Troop on Instagram is my main platform. If you want to pick up some dope merch, I got all kinds of fresh stuff, bulletprooftroop.com. Shout out to my gym, Black House MMA, my coaches, Kenny Johnson and Rage. Shout out to my big sponsors, Rock LA, Rock IV, Dr. D, MMA Events Inc., Gym Crashers, Insight Graphics, Apex Defensive Strategies. And shout out to all my Bulletproof Troopers and Bulletproof Troopettes around the globe, baby. We taking over. 2020 is our year. A big shout out to Will for bringing me on today. I had a blast talking to you, brother.
Thanks, brother. It's been a great time. And who are you knocking out Friday the 13th?
I can't say yet.
Darn it.
I can't say yet.
I tried to get
I
out.
can't say yet, but someone's going to sleep.
Oh, hell yeah.
Nightmare's coming back to town.
There he is. Blake, Bulletproof Troop. Thank you. And, thanks for coming back to the Voice of Misery, people.
Yes, it is I, Bin Hameen, commanding all of you to join the wrestling revolution, the underground of media, and follow our brothers at
Voices of Misery on Twitter and subscribe to their podcast, because they support hackerhameen.podbean.com, and you will go support voicesofmisery.podbean.com, because there is no more misery when you leave those FM marked channels and you join the media underground of Voices of Misery and hackerhameen.podbean.com. Rise and praise YOLO.